Our agenda briefing for our ordinary council meeting on the 19th of May 2025 here at the Kalgoorlie Town Hall. I declare tonight's agenda meeting open at 6 p.m. And on behalf of the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land of which we meet this evening. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on the Council's website in accordance with the City's public participation in Council meeting policy, which can be viewed on Council's website. All reasonable care is taken to maintain your privacy. There are no visitors in the gallery tonight. However, if there were, as a visitor in the public gallery, presence may be recorded. Remaining in the gallery is also assumed that your consent is then given for your image if it is broadcast. The recommendations contained in this agenda are officers' recommendations only and should not be acted upon until Council has resolved to adopt those recommendations. The resolutions of Council should be confirmed by perusing the minutes of the Council meeting at which these recommendations were considered. Members of the public should also note that they act at their own risk if they enact any resolution prior to receiving official written notification of Council's decision. The purpose for an agenda briefing session is for elected members to ask questions and obtain additional information in respect of the items presented at next week's ordinary council meeting and on the agenda. Questions asked by elected members are to be answered by the CEO or a person nominated by the CEO or the person presiding. No decisions are made at agenda briefing sessions, no statements are to be made, and there's no debate on items conducted. Our record of attendance. Very good evening tonight. The Deputy Mayor is with us via phone. Deputy Mayor, good evening.
Good evening.
Councillor Winner, good evening to you. Councillor Johnson, hello. Councillor O'Donnell, greetings. Councillor Turner, hello. And Councillor Viskovich is also here tonight. Good evening. Members of staff, we have the CEO. Good evening, Mr. CEO. Working our way across the table as well this evening, we have our Director of Governance and Organisational Strategy, Francis Liston. Thank you, Francis, for joining us tonight. Mayor Hicks is here tonight, who's our Director of Advocacy and Strategy. Hello. Also tonight as well, we welcome Melissa, who's in our role with the Director of City and Community. Good evening to you, Melissa. Casey is standing in tonight as the Acting Director of Finance and People and Culture. Casey, hello. Cass is with us as Director of Corporate and Commercial. Hello. And Louis moved around the corner. He's the Director of Engineering, who's here tonight as well. Hello, Louis. Our Coordinator of IT is Riley, who's with us tonight. Our IT Cyber Security Analyst is Matt, and Jamie is our Governance Officer. We have no visitors, we have no press, we have no apologies from elected members, we have no apologies from staff, Mr. CEO, no. We have a leave of absence from the Deputy Mayor, however, noting that the Deputy Mayor is in attendance tonight. We have Councillor Bodica, who is on a leave of absence, not with us tonight, and Councillor Turner, who has a leave of absence, who is with us tonight. Councillors, I haven't received any notations of interest for tonight. Is there anyone that wants to put any forward at this point in time? No, thank you. And at this point, there are no urgent items to be approved. Councillors, items 14 or item 14.1 relates to the Strategic and General Purpose Committee meeting. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 items that are all located to that. Councillors, as you're all members of the particular committee, and we've already had our committee meeting for that, are there any further questions on any of those particular items without any discussion from staff at this point? Is there any questions that you would like answered? No, thank you. If there are, you feel free to place them in writing to the CEO. Item 15 is the reports of officers, and from our CEO, our 15.1.1 is the Statement of Financial Activity for March 2025. Casey, if you'd like to come forward as Acting Director of Finance, People and Culture, we have our Statement of Financial Activity for the period ending 31st of March 2025. Casey also has a couple of other items after that as well. Casey, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the Mayor, the monthly Statement of Financial Activity provides Council with a high-level oversight over operating capital revenues and expenditures for the City. Financially, the City is on track with budget with a less than 1% variance on revenue and expenditure for the March period. Main variances include a higher than expected interest revenue and profit on disposal of surplus plant and equipment and traded in vehicles. And expenses are higher than budget for employee costs, but this is offset in savings in materials and contracts due to timing variances.
Thanks, Casey. Councillors, are there any questions on our statement of financial activity? Councillor Winner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through the mayor to the officer. Within the officer's report on page 37 on the agenda and on page 6 of the monthly financial report for March 2025, there is a note under other welfare that the use precinct is going to be delayed until next year. Is that intended as next financial year, as in July 2025, or are we expecting that as a calendar year?
Thank you, Councillor Winner. Casey.
Through the Mayor, that is next financial year.
Any further questions, councillors? No, thank you. 1512 is our accounts payable for April 2025. Back to you, Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The April accounts payable payments total approximately $12 million for the month. This is higher than our monthly average of $9 million due to an ESL billing Q3 contribution to the Department of Fire and Emergency Services of $1.4 million, roadworks paid to Total Asphalt to a total of $950,000, which is more than last month, a payment made to Rob Carr Proprietary Limited for the construction of a new sewer main extension of around $600,000, and footpath and curbing works paid to Dowsing Group Proprietary Limited for $394,000 more than March.
Thanks, Casey. Any questions, councillors? No questions. Thank you. 1513 is the long-term financial plan 2025 to 2035. Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The long-term financial plan is presented to Council for adoption. It is part of the City's integrated planning and reporting framework and outlines the City's financial plan for the future. All programs and projects have been prioritised in accordance with the strategic objectives of the City, with a focus on maintaining the current and future service levels while ensuring conservative spending to ensure the City's financial sustainability. The long-term financial plan is used as a planning tool and includes various assumptions, which are outlined in the document, and it is reviewed annually in the preparation of the annual budget.
Thanks, Casey. Any questions, councillors? No? Thank you. Item 1514, Mr. CEO, you are the responsible officer at the top of this report. Would you like Casey to discuss? Yeah, okay. Thanks, Casey. Just wanted to confirm.
Through the Mayor, the Salary and Allowances Tribunal, who regulate the payment to elected members, and the Chief Executive Officer, under the Section 7B(2) of the Salary and Allowances Act 1975, released their annual determination in April of this year. This report only identifies the increase to elected member payments as the CEO remuneration is reported through the CEO Performance Review Committee. This report outlines an increase of 3.5% to elected members' fees and is presented to Council to note as part of the annual budget preparation.
Thanks, Casey. Questions, councillors? Councillor Turner. Microphone, please, Councillor Turner.
Apologies. I think this question might be directed more to the CEO than the officer, so through the Mayor. That 3.5% increase that's been determined by SAT, can we, as a council, reject that we have an increase?
Mr. CEO.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor, that's purely a decision for council. You could consider it. At the moment, the way it's structured is we're paid at the maximum rate, so you would have to vary that resolution.
So that would require an alternate resolution if we were to do that?
Yes, it would.
Supplementary question. If we wanted to look at how we actually structure our allowance, and rather than, at the moment, I believe we just receive a straight allowance. We don't break it up between attending meetings or meeting attendance fees or anything like that. So that would also require an alternate motion. Is that correct?
Mr. CEO.
Yes, thank you. Through the Mayor, yes, it would. Officers would need to investigate the implications of that and then obviously bring a report back should council decide to go down that path.
Okay, so my last question would be, if we had an alternate motion to that, perhaps it may be something that we would perhaps have to then defer to the next meeting so our officers could do some work on it?
Mr. CEO.
Yes, thank you. Through the Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Winner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is in a similar vein to Councillor Turner's, and that is, while I acknowledge the proposed increase to council allowances being set and determined by the state and not asked for by councillors, does council have the ability through an alternative motion or a new motion to have allowances changed to a meeting attendance fee and or linked to councillor performances? And could this be achieved through an alternative amended motion under this item at the next OCM?
Mr CEO.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor. The Salary and Allowances Tribunal set the parameters from which council can pay an allowance. It is either an annual allowance or a per meeting allowance. There's no provision to go for a performance or anything else. It is simply around those two criteria. We'd need to investigate the process to transition from an annual allowance back to a per meeting allowance. So if that was the desire of council, an alternate resolution would need to come through next week.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Any questions, councillors? Any further questions?
No, thank you, Casey. Item 15.15 is notice of intention to levy differential rates 25-26.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report outlines the 2025-26 Statement of Objects and Reasons for Differential Rating and is council is requested to adopt and endorse for advertising the proposed 25-26 differential rates in the dollar and the minimum payments for public comment as required by Section 6.36 of the Local Government Act 1995. The Statement of Rating Objects and Reasons outlines a 5.01% increase on the total 24-25 rates revenue yield. This is equivalent to a 3.3% increase to the rates in the dollar and minimum payments to individual ratepayers. The City's 25-26 operating revenue, including rates, is budgeted to be around $136 million. The proposed rates revenue yield constitutes $35,822,533. The City supplements its operating revenue with other sources of funds and is planning to deliver a capital works program worth $77 million in the 25-26 financial year. Operating expenditure is expected to increase by approximately 3%. Overall, the model outlined in the Statement of Objects and Reasons aims to balance out the need for increased revenue with anticipated rise in expenditures and investment in capital projects to ensure the City can fund its operational needs and capital projects to remain sustainable in the future.
Thank you, Casey. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Winner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just through the Mayor to the officer. The proposed officer's recommendation of a rate increase of up to 5.01% for public advertising does not mean that there will be a rate, that is the set rate for next year, but rather for budgeting purposes and is capped up to that amount when consideration. Is this correct?
Mr CEO.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor. The rate revenue increase of 5.01% is the total increase in rate revenue. The impact on individual ratepayers at the moment is about 3.3% increase through the rate in the dollar or the minimum general rate. So the council request was to aim at less than 5%. When officers have gone through and done the modelling, 5.01% was probably the closest we could get. The level of increase proposed for the 5.01 now.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Last year we also had a similar situation where the yield was spoken about a lot and that caused absolute uproar within the community because they didn't understand it. So my question is, can we make this very user-friendly this year, the way it's put out there, using the figures 5%, using how that moves around, just so the residents of this city understand and we don't go through that thing last year. I personally received that much flack over it, only because it was poorly presented. And I think that was a consensus around this table. So, Mr CEO, can we look down that path of making it more user-friendly?
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Mr CEO.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor. Certainly it was an issue. The other challenge we had last year was also it was a revaluation year, which meant we couldn't go the flat rate in the dollar, in the rate in the dollar change. You can't go out and talk about that when you have such a wide variance in valuations. This year we haven't had a complete reval, so there's been some properties affected. So the 3.3% rate in the dollar increase is a lot easier to talk about this year than it was last year, because that flat rate in the dollar didn't impact quite the same as did last year with revals in there. So take on board your comments. How we actually put this out to market, we'll deal with that through the comms team and ensure that we try and get a right balance. At the moment, though, this is going out purely for advertising.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, just a supplementary to that. In today's paper, it didn't express it too clearly. I understand that's the press doing that. They're using the yield and they're using all the figures, and by the time you got halfway through the article, it was so confusing. I even had a few comments about that as well. So that's where I'm talking about user-friendliness. I understand the bells and all the rest of it. But we can go forward on our front foot, I'm sure, as a city and make it totally...
So it's a statement?
No,
Do you
no,
have a
it's not a
question?
statement. It's a
Where's your
question
question?
saying, can we go forward with that user-friendly thing? What happened last year happened last year.
Yep, I
because
think the
of
CEO's already answered that
That's right.
previously. Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Turner.
Okay, so I suppose following on a little bit from Councillor Johnson, more from Councillor Winner, perhaps it might be through to the CEO rather than the director, as it's the acting director. Could we also be very clear on our advertising, on our changes of our minimum payment, right? And also our uses. So I noticed that we did have some significant changes last year to some of our categories, and that we changed the rating value because probably we had a few categories that perhaps residents were getting rated higher in the dollar than what other activities were, which council officers rectified, and that wasn't advertised very clearly. Are there any other, I suppose it could be going through our fees and charges, that we look at some of those activities on our, with the differential rates, how we've got them broken up, that there can be perhaps some other charges on some of those properties levied that could, I suppose it's on the fees and charges, and also that we're very clear on how our minimum rates are done and that 3.3%, because it was very, and I know it was a year that we had evaluation, but it was just, we all know it was clear as mud. Some councillors didn't even understand it, so I understand why members of the press and public wouldn't understand it.
Mr. CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Certainly the comments are noted there. We will have a look at that. Looking at fees and charges, well, we're looking at 3.3%, equivalent increase across the majority of fees and charges. Some of those will vary further, and some of them are actually set by state, so they're out of our control, so we'll continue to work through those. The issue around the information, if I may, Mr Mayor, from Councillor Johnson's comment about what was in the paper didn't approach us. They wrote their article based on what they deemed appropriate at the time. Council hadn't even considered the draft agenda at that point, so we will be putting out Council's position on it, and we'll be putting out appropriate media statements to try and address some of those concerns that have been raised by elected members.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Turner.
So perhaps a supplementary question. I know previously that a previous man, I don't think it was the last one, used to actually invite members of the press in and other relevant parties so that they could, and so they would brief them and break down actually like a bit of an information session so that they could understand it. Would that be worthwhile of us looking into doing something like that?
Councillor Turner, we did that with the community at the community town hall last year to put our case forward. So I'd rather go around the press and go to the community straight up, because the press can't get it right.
I'm happy for either, but to address people and they can ask questions and we can explain it.
Thank you. I'll take the CEO's note of that. Councillor Winner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just the comments around the table triggered one last question from myself on this item. And while I recognise 3.3% for the residential rate is only slightly higher than CPI, I just wanted to have it confirmed by the CEO, if possible, that council still has the capacity, once this item comes back to an OCM after the advertising period, to keep or reduce the rate pending feedback and further assessment of budget requirements. Is that correct?
Thanks, Councillor Winner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor, certainly this is the advertising process. Council does get another consideration of this when it comes back.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Any further questions? Thank you. Thanks, Acting Director tonight, Casey. Improved process and community engagement framework for sealed road program delivery. Director of Engineering, Louis Camporelli.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through yourself. Council was asked to receive and endorse a report that presents an improved process for community engagement framework and for sealed road program delivery. New process includes incorporating refined operational workflows, strengthened communications, a community-first engagement framework. These improvements also previously identify inefficiencies with the way we've been delivering some of our roadworks in the past.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Winner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just through the Mayor to the Director. particularly around the programs to support businesses affecting disruptions caused by City Works. Director, I note that there's quite a robust amount of events and initiatives being proposed, and I do recognise these stem through numerous meetings the city's had with retailers, particularly those on Burt Street. I just wanted to ask a question of, in terms of timeline, are we expecting these events to be delivered over the next financial year, with some of these remaining ongoing?
Thank you, Councillor Winner. Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. We met with Burt Street Traders 2 weeks ago on the Wednesday to talk through some of these initiatives that were coming up. They'll come back to us because timeline wasn't great for what they were proposing, and there were some other businesses or some other organisations that were delivering the same things that we were looking to deliver.
Any further questions, councillors? No. Thank you, Director. 1522. An interesting one. Supply and delivery of 3 12-tonne tipper trucks with 11 metre is it squared? It's not squared, is it? Cubic metres, thank you. Steel rear tipping body. Clearly not in engineering myself. Over to you, Director. Who is?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through yourself. Council was asked to consider submissions received for the request for quote 009 2425 and award the contract to respondent E.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors, on the 3 12-tonne tipper trucks? Councillor Winner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mine will also be brief because I'm not across the technical side of it. However, I just wanted to check with the Director if these were a replacement of 3 vehicles or an extension of the fleet.
Director.
These were a replacement of 3 vehicles. The vehicles that are being replaced are from 2013, 2014 and 2012. So 13 years old, the oldest one.
Thank you. No further questions, councillors? No? Thank you, Director of Engineering. Corporate and Commercial, 1531, Peppercorn Lease, Kalgoorlie-Boulder branch of Sporting Shooters Association of Australia. Director of Corporate and Commercial is Cash Yager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is for Council to consider a request for a new peppercorn lease at Reserve 37800, located off Goldfields Highway in Yulkari, to the Kalgoorlie-Boulder Sporting Shooters Association. The association has leased the land since 2004, with their current lease expiring in March 2025, and they're currently in holding over provisions. There have been a number of building compliance issues that the city has been working with the association to address. These have now been rectified to the satisfaction of the city, and a new peppercorn lease is now recommended to council, subject to the consent of the Minister for Lands. Consistent with other peppercorn leases, a term of 21 years is proposed with an annual rental of $110 per annum.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, councillors? Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You say that various buildings and that have been rectified to the for the city's standard and going ahead with the lease. Are the sporting shooters currently operating with approval of the police at the moment?
Director.
Yes, so the police are aware that they are operating there. We did provide a letter of support to enable them to keep operating while this holding over is in progress.
Thank you. Councillor O'Donnell.
So the sporting shooters, they still meet every Sunday, no problems at the moment, because the police department are going around the whole state, stopping various rifle groups, pistol groups and other sporting bodies from continuing their function. Is our local sporting shooters club operating every week at the moment, do you know?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I wouldn't know every week, I can check that, but I do know that they are operating, and the police is also using that facility for training purposes.
Councillor O'Donnell.
And yes, one last one. Yes, if the police department or the government changes the rules again about these, and the sporting shooters say their group is no longer compliable, can we withdraw the peppercorn lease? Is there a way that both parties can get out of it, rather than if it just sits there and sporting shooters have got the lease for 24 years but they can't use it.
21 years, Councillor O'Donnell. Over to you, Cass. Yeah.
Through the Mayor, yes, there would be provisions in the lease for termination for particular reasons.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Turner.
Just to the Director, through the Mayor, I note in the report that there were several issues of building non-compliance that had to be addressed to meet safety and regulatory standards, and it looks like our local group invested quite a lot of money, in $80,000 of their own funds and substantial support from local businesses. My question is, does the city own the building?
Director.
Through the Mayor, no, we own the land. We don't own those structures they've built.
Thank you.
My second question would be, that's what I suspect. So they are another organisation that owns a building on council land, which we seem to have we've got some buildings that we're responsible for that we're giving $110 leases for, and then we've got other buildings that organisations have done and they're responsible for the maintenance. So how far away are we from getting a register so we can kind of keep a track on this to make sure the buildings that we own are having maintenance so we don't have other non-compliance?
Just a clarification, it's under management order, not a freehold for the city. So the city has it under management order, at least with the Sporting Shooters Association.
Yeah. So
back to you, Director, but your question still stands.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the second bit of it.
How far are we away from getting we were looking at getting a register of all the council properties that we owned and the council properties and the properties that were on council property that others owned that we were supplying these leases for. It was some time ago that we'd asked for it so we could try and keep track, because there was buildings that groups hadn't kept up the maintenance, and then there was buildings that we had to make sure that we had maintained and were compliant.
I can answer that through the Mayor. I'm actually working on that at the moment with the team. So we are going through all of our leases, particularly peppercorn, commercial, residential, and identifying who's responsible for what. So that is a piece of work live right now.
Fantastic. And my last question will be, so I understand that this is very similar to what the Mayor said about what Crookshanks is, that we don't own the land, we've got it under management order, so there's numerous things like this around the city that people have got buildings on that we've got to get ahead of.
Sorry, Councillor Turner, what's your question?
My question was it a similar situation to Crookshanks, that we didn't own it, but we have a management order?
I can answer that one. Thank you.
So, and can we get a further list to say how much property we've got under management order that we don't actually own? Can that get added to our register?
I think that's exactly what the Director's working on. Thank you, Councillor. Excellent. Thank you, Cass. Sorry, no further questions? No, thank you. City and Community. Melissa Murphy is our Director of City and Community, and the first item under City and Community is the Golden Quest Discovery Trail Partnership Service Agreement 25-26. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. The Council, the purpose of this paper is the Council is asked to approve a one-year partnership service agreement and authorise the CO to endorse the revised Memorandum of Understanding with the Golden Quest Discovery Trail. The trail is a collaborative ongoing project between the City of Kalgoorlie and the Shires of Menzies, Leonora and Laverton, which focuses on the 956 kilometres of trail encompassing the goldfield regions from Coolgardie to Laverton. The trail supports its members by marketing and promotion, trade show support, administrative functions, and the maintenance of trail signage and the sites along the trail. Evaluation of last year's outcomes found the partnership between the city and the trail demonstrated value for money. With the Golden Quest Discovery Trail completing a signage audit and also securing funding through the state election for an upgrade to trail signage. The 224 activities established a baseline of marketing effort, and the 225 builds on that plan with more explicit objectives, investing in higher quality content, specific targeted individual iconic location promotions and digital ads, exploring new sales channels, particularly online, upgrading the online presence of the site, together with building a member buy-in model for optional extra marketing. It's recommended that the Council approves the Partnership Services Agreement with a review of outcomes conducted and Council approval as per the partnership policy being sought before entering into MOUs past 226.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Viskovich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may have missed it, but I just wanted to double check what other communities are actually inputting with this project as well. Oh, sorry, do we know individual costs from each shire?
Yes, we do. Shires, as per the council paper, are all putting in the $11,500 towards the partnership, with the exception of Kalgoorlie, which obviously is in the public arena in relation to the situation there.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
So just through the Mayor to the officer, my question is following on from Councillor Viskovich. $11,500 is a very small amount to contribute to this. It's if anyone's had a chance to go and have a look at it, I would say go and have a look at it, and with updated signage it'll be even better. It's got some really interesting information. With given that we had 4 other local shires that were putting into it and we're all putting in the same amount, is there scope for us to work with the other shires whilst Coolgardie works through their issues to perhaps provide some other assistance to the Golden Quest Discovery Trail, because it would be a very small amount per shire, and I'd hate for them to fall short and not be able to do their operations, because it's really good.
I've got your question in there. Thank you, Director.
Through you, Mayor Wilson, the board is currently reviewing how the trail elements located in the Shire of Coolgardie are to be marketed. Particularly given that the trail starts in that area, there's no intent for them not to be included as part of the trial process of marketing for this year. But I can take it on notice as to how we could communicate with the board about options.
Councillor Turner.
That's great, because I would 100% expect them to be still included, because it does start there.
Yes.
And it's very important. But if our neighbours are going through some tough times, we do things, but it's bushfires and all kinds of things.
What's your question, Councillor Turner?
I just want to find out if we can find out what options, if we can work with the other shires to see if we can help them out. Help the Golden Quest Discovery Trail Act.
So your question is, can we work with the other shires?
Menzies, Leonora and Laverton.
Yes.
Yep.
So, Director, can we work with the other shires to assist the coverage?
I think we'll need to address this with the board to determine what might be required. We don't have an insight at this point into that from them, other than their intent is to still encompass the Coolgardie area, but we can take that further on notice.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Winner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have 2, if I may. The first one is, are we aware if our previous partner shires in this project have indicated possible support for this partnership project moving forward?
Director.
Through you, Mayor, could you repeat your question? I couldn't quite hear it.
That's not a problem at all. The question is, are we aware if our previous partner shires in this project have indicated possible support for this partnership project moving forward?
Through you, Mayor Wilson, at this point there is in principle support for the agreement to continue, yes.
Fantastic, thank you. And the second question, if I may, Mr. Mayor, is given the attachments linked to the officers, this item in the officers' report are confidential, is there capacity to further share with our community some of the key benefits achieved during the previous agreement for this city and as a collective?
Through the Mayor, we can certainly take that on notice and determine whether that's possible. Given that the report is desktoped in a very user-friendly way, I would be surprised if that wasn't able to be shared beyond the current partners, but we'll take that on notice. And
thank you. Any further questions? No, thank you. 15.4.2, Dome Structures Policy.
Council proposed to manage the size and location of dome structures within Kalgoorlie-Boulder. The term dome structure is one commonly used to identify the use of two shipping containers supported by a curved roof, clad or in lightweight fabric. The smaller structures use 20-foot containers, while the larger structures use 40-foot containers, and potentially some can be double stacked. Dome structures have become popular as they provide a cost-effective, weather-protected and secure storage area and can be erected quickly. Historically, they've been erected in industrial sites, but they have become more common in city mixed-use and commercial zones. In some areas of the city, the construction of domes has become an issue for adjacent residents due to their industrial character. And in fact, they are not anticipated, and the fact that they were not anticipated as structures associated with commercial and residential areas. The city has received legal advice that due to the construction components and the shape and form of those structures, they cannot be defined as an outbuilding or a carport under the ARCO designs. To ensure that the city has some control over the size and location of dome structures, the draft policy is attached for consideration. The city has local planning policy for sea containers, but it's proposed that this policy remains separate to the sea container policy, as dome structures are quite unique and require planning and building approval in every instance and are not considered a composite building. The objectives of the proposed policy are to guide and control the use, location and scale of dome structures to an acceptable standard and to establish criteria and a consistent approach for the assessment of applications relating to structures. Dome structures are capable of being approved in light industry, rural, general, industrial and rural town sites under the policy with restrictions on the size and number, and they are prohibited in all other zones in the proposal from the administration. The proposed draft policy is consistent with advice to council regarding areas where they were not permitted, not to be permitted, and now include rural zone, town site zones, where it is proposed that one smaller structure is permitted per lot. Council is asked to adopt the draft policy for advertising with a period of 21 days for feedback from the community. Further report will be presented back to council, subject to the advertising period and any feedback.
Thank you, Director. Questions? Councillor Turner.
Just two questions to the Director through the Mayor. So I noticed the prohibited zones in the report, which I'm fully supportive of. Which leads into my second question, if people or businesses or individuals, whoever they are, have one of these structures in one of these zones that doesn't apply, will they firstly have to have it removed? And secondly, will we be looking at getting retrospective planning applications for all the other zones so we can monitor it? Because there's no point saying, because you had it post policy, you can have 10 of them, but because you're after policy, you have to apply to policy. So how are we going to manage that?
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Director.
Through Mayor Wilson, I'll answer the second question you asked first. Our legal advice suggests that structures that were in existence prior to 6 years ago would not be subject to a retrospective treatment. Structures less than 6 years ago, maybe, but given our compliance resources at the city, it may not be practicable to do that in a general proactive way, but rather to make it on a case-by-case basis subject to receiving a complaint.
Councillor Turner.
Supplementary question, so how will we monitor it? Will we go back to old Google Earth pictures or something and then have a look? Or just purely from complaints?
I think it was identified that it would be on a complaint basis.
Through Mayor Wilson, however, I have asked our IT department to determine whether or not an aerial or AI or GIS process could be used should we wish to identify high priority issues if need be. But that's an early process and I'm yet to determine what the level of resource intensification would be required.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Thank you, Director. Councillor Viskovich, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just wondering if we had been able to collate a list of properties that this may impact once this comes into play. Do we have a set number of properties that would not be under this or not meeting the requirements of this policy?
Director.
So through Mayor Wilson, the process would be that applications for dome structures would, this policy would then compel applicants to put their dome structure requests to the administration for review under the policy, which would also include the need for them to be compliant with our building standards. So there is no current proactive strategic assessment of areas that might be impacted. It would really be up to the case-by-case applicant proposal that we would anticipate to come forward for new dome structures.
Follow-up question, Councillor Viskovich.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I possibly make the question, do we know how many properties in the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder currently have a dome structure erected?
Through
Director.
Mayor Wilson, no, we do not. We have not in the past compelled people, residents and businesses building such structures to provide the council with that information. Hence, if we wished to determine the number of those structures, we would need to undertake some quite extensive investigations to assess where they are, and they are numerous, and we probably need some sort of technology to undertake an assessment such as that. It wouldn't necessarily make, it wouldn't be something you could do as in drive-by with vehicles, because a number of them are actually not able to be seen from the street.
Or someone to complain and say, oh, I don't think that meets the airport height requirement, because we're mindful that our own structures meet that, and if that impacts on things. So that's something that I'm a little bit worried, because there's some really big ones.
Correct. What was your question out of that?
Do we know how many don't meet airport height limits?
Director?
Through Mayor Wilson, we don't have any intelligence on current dome structures in Kalgoorlie to the level, a comprehensive level, other than what we might see visually in a drive-by. But the councillor, you raised a good point, and I can certainly take that particular one around air safety on notice to determine if there could be a process.
Thank you, Director. Mr CEO, you just wish to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. Through the Mayor. In response to that, there's a number of layers we do have on our GIS system, and the airport continually monitors anything that impedes on any of the flight paths that would come into the airport. Pilots will be very quick to tell us if there's anything that becomes an obstacle in that area. So that is monitored, it is regulated fairly heavily, so they would be aware of anything that's in that structure. The limitations around that, nothing would be constructed that would actually impact on that around it. Even if it was on the boundary of the airport, it would be very unlikely to impact on the flights.
Any further questions, councillors? One from me, Director. In Figure 2 in the agenda, 2 dome structures with a common central container, just for clarification purposes. When there is a common central container that is just one structure, in footprint, but it is considered as 2 domes. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. No further questions, councillors? 15.4.3 is the relocation of an approved home business from residence to outbuilding shed, lot 232, number 43, Moran Street in Boulder. 6432.
Council is asked to approve an application for the relocation of an approved photography studio from within the residence to an outbuilding at 43 Moran Street, Boulder. Site contains an established single house, a greenhouse and an outbuilding at the rear of the property and parking for 3 vehicles, one of which includes for customers. The application is seeking approval to relocate the approved photography studio from the residence to the outbuilding and to increase the hours of operation to include Saturday and Sunday and Monday to Friday an extra hour from the current 10 a.m. start to the 9 a.m. start. The home business is not permitted to have more than 1 customer and it is by appointment only. Current approval restricts the operation of the home business to Elizabeth Curry, who must remain a permanent resident of the property. The home business area is restricted to 50 metres. The proposal was advertised to adjacent and surrounding properties. The city received 1 submission and that was in support. There's no history of complaints regarding the home or the business use. It's recommended that council approves the home business with conditions as proposed.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? No? Just one from me. Point 1, the previous approval, was that under delegation or was that via council resolution?
It was actually under delegation, and since then we've actually changed, the delegations were changed, and that is why you see this before you today, Mayor.
Thank you. No further questions, councillors? No? Thank you. Councillors, that wraps up our OCM agenda. We have 2 items to consider under confidential items, which council will now take on board. We'll pause our feed. Council have just received 2 items of a confidential nature for the 19th of May council meeting, which questions were asked. Our ordinary council meeting will be at 7 p.m. on the 19th of May here at the Kalgoorlie Town Hall, and I'll close tonight's agenda briefing at 7 p.m. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. Much appreciated for your time this evening.